Welcome to the Success Ascent. My name is Pat Mancuso, the creator and host of our show, and we are excited that you are here today. I have a very special guest with you today, and frankly, I think this is going to be one of the most interesting interviews that we've had. Let me just start off by saying that we've got somebody who had a desire to be a professional snowboarder, and we'll probably touch on that story a little bit. So thank you so much for all of your support. You can always subscribe and get all of our updates at www.thesuccessascent.com. So I want to introduce a gentleman by the name of Chris Naugle to you today. And as I always do, they've got bios and we love to read what their path is, their success. So Chris has dedicated his life to being America's #1 money mentor. I love that. His success includes managing over $30 million in assets in the financial services and advisory industry. And as he shared with me in our pre-discussion, became a top performer in that industry. He also has been a part of an HGTV pilot. I love that. He's built 16 companies with businesses being featured in Forbes, ABC, and House Hunters. He currently is the co-founder and CEO of FlipOut Academy, founder of Money School. I think we're going to talk about money today, and money mentor of the Money Multiplier. He's also a twice author, including the books Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery and The Private Money Game. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Honored to be here.
Well, Chris, you know, I always have some fun with my guests when we kick off, and I say, that was Chris on paper. Tell us something about Chris that wasn't on paper.
Yeah, because you only talked about the good stuff. So I grew up in a lower middle class family. Mom raised me. It was a huge struggle for her. My father was an alcoholic. And the one thing as a child that I had to realize very quickly is that we didn't have the money. We didn't have the resources. Like my other friends wanted something, they just asked for it. Me, I went and worked for it. But the one thing my mother did for me that was not mentioned in that bio is she taught me how to dream. And I was always a big dreamer. And I didn't even, the book Napoleon Hill and all that stuff. I didn't know anything about that, but I knew when I wanted something, I had to think intently on it. I had to draw it. I had to never stop thinking about it. And eventually those different things that I wanted, skateboard, BMX, dirt bike, they materialized over time. And I think it's because I always dreamt about them. So that's one thing you didn't mention. The second thing is I was an early entrepreneur at the age of 16. So the entrepreneur world didn't happen because I wanted to. It happened because I was almost didn't know what else to do. I had to become an entrepreneur because I wanted to be a pro snowboarder. The job I had at the pizza place and the Italian restaurant, they treated me so badly that I was depressed. So when I quit, in my mind, I quit trading hours for dollars at that point. And I went out and I started a clothing line out of my mom's basement with my art teacher who we'd printed t-shirts after school. And I sold them out of a backpack. And then I sold them on the road going to snowboard contests. And eventually a year later, this is November of 94, I opened my first skateboard snowboard shop. It took $70,000 to get that store open in the Lockport Mall. And that dream was the biggest one I had up to that date. It died. It literally died. Everybody told me I was a fool for thinking of doing this, that I was going to fail. It's kind of like that movie, kid, you're going to shoot your eye out. And it was, kid, you're going to fail. My father said, go get a job at the factory where he worked. It was just like everybody's ideologies came out and everybody said, I shouldn't do my dream. I should do what they did. And to me, all of them weren't living what life they wanted. Their dreams vanished many years ago. And I wasn't going to do that. My mother, who I call my unconditional one, she saw this dream fading. And I remember, I don't know why she did this, but she put her house on the line so that her punk 17-year-old kid could chase his dream. And my mother and me, we grew up in a 700 square foot, 2-bedroom house, and it had equity of about 75 grand. And I remember she put it on the line. She put it all on the line so that her kid could chase his dream. It was a foolish thing, but that's how I did it. That's how I became an entrepreneur. I opened those stores. I ran them all the way up to 2010 when I sold them. They're still open today. And that journey was awesome. I was a pro snowboarder running snowboard shops. It was like a dream come true until the .com crash happened. And then I realized, wow, what is this recession thing? My business was doing great. Now it's not. And that's what landed me in the Wall Street world as an advisor. Is the only people that wanted to hire me. Heck, Little Caesars didn't even want to hire me to deliver pizzas. True story. So I landed in the Wall Street world. And I remember I'd never put a suit on in my life. So my grandmother bought me a suit with a zip up tie. And I went on the interview and that was it. And from that point, which was 2003 to 2008, I absolutely crushed it because I did everything all the other advisors were unwilling to do. And I became one of the top 3 advisors at that firm, making a lot of money. It allowed me to then start flipping a few houses. And that parade went on until 2008, when I pretty much almost lost everything because I was developing a strip mall right before the Great Recession. And when that hit, man, it was like getting hit by a Mack truck. So those are some of the early things that happened. And then my girlfriend, when I asked her to help me pay the mortgage, the utilities, I moved 2 friends into bedrooms I wasn't using in my house. That's how I made it through, and sometimes you just got to do what everybody else doesn't want to do to make it through those times. And I just wasn't willing to quit.
Well, Chris, I mean, we talked about this when we started, it's very common for entrepreneurs to have that entrepreneurial spirit very early on in their life. They don't realize that they don't call themselves entrepreneurs. However, your journey certainly is relevant to, where you are today. And so, on our show, we talk about the journey of success, and, we're going to get to some things that I think are very interesting in what you're doing. And I'm going to get a little teaser out there right now that we're going to talk about how you become your own bank, because I really do want to hear about that and what you're teaching people on the financial aspect. However, let's talk a little bit about your overall entrepreneurial journey. What have you learned that you could share as being an entrepreneur? Like, what's the biggest things you've learned?
Gosh, when I first became an entrepreneur, I knew nothing about anything. And the biggest thing I learned early on, and it was because I had a teacher in high school. Remember, I was in high school, that was an accounting teacher. And he says, listen, in business, the number one thing you have to do is you have to learn bookkeeping. You have to learn how to run your books. And I remember him telling me these words. I'll never forget it as long as I live. He said, I can run any company anywhere in the country because I know the books and I know how to run the books. And instantly I'm like, okay, well, I got to learn this. Because at that point, you make money, you put it in the bank. And that was like, hey, that was my profit, or at least I thought. And then I learned bookkeeping. So at a young age, I took an interest in learning how to run books on the company. Then after that, I took a very strong interest in branding. There was a company, a snowboard company called Volcom. Some of you may know it, but I was intrigued and so obsessed with this company as a young man or young teenager because of their branding, how they actually branded the company, how they put that company out in the eyes of the consumer. And I said, if they're doing that, I just need to mimic what they're doing. So I just copied it. So as an entrepreneur, bookkeeping was the first thing. Marketing and branding was the second things that I learned. Now, remember, I'm a teenager doing this.
Yeah.
So those were the biggest early takeaways I had. And then I also was, as a young kid, we didn't have money. So my mother taught me how to save. She used to, when she needed a lawnmower, she'd save her change in this glass jar that was in the closet. And I watched this as a kid. You just watch things and you learn, you pick it up. And I remember I wanted a dirt bike, a KX 60, but I was a little big for that when the time came. My mother said, if you want that, what you got to do is go out and make money. So I'd shovel driveways, I'd mow lawns, I'd work at the farm across the street, and I'd come home and I'd make money. And what I did is I would take this money and I'd give it to my mother. And my mother showed me, she bought me this little black box with a slide top. I'll never forget, I still have it. And I would just put the money in that slide top. And I just kept doing this. I'd make money. I'd take out what I needed for gas in my dirt bike, and I'd put the rest in this box. So at an early age, I became a saver. So when I became an entrepreneur, I'd make money. I'd pay the expenses because I learned that through bookkeeping. And I took everything else I made that I didn't need, and I would save it. And every time I saved it, I wouldn't just save it and go buy frivolous things. I wasn't into material things, thank God, as young. I just wanted a snowboard. That's all I wanted. So I would take
a dirt bike and a bike.
I did have the dirt bike. The first dirt bike was the KX 125. I'll never forget the day my mom took me to the dirt bike store and said, let's test drive some bikes. I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. And then when I rode it, she said to me, so how would you like to buy this today? I had saved enough money working at a little restaurant all summer long to actually be able to buy that bike. And that was like the first time where I saw how savings actually resulted in me getting the big things I wanted. Yeah. So when I saved, I just redeployed that money. And at a young age, I was learning how to actually save and move money to make more money. And I think that was a really important thing as an entrepreneur to learn at an early age. But there's many other things, but those are the early things that I took away from being an entrepreneur.
It's one thing. I don't know if you follow Grant Cardone, and people love him or hate him. I'm guessing you follow him. he said that. He said, one of the things when you make money as a business investor, entrepreneur, is you invest it to make more money versus letting it just sit on the sidelines, which, it just makes so much sense. So what challenges did you have as an entrepreneur or have as an, yeah, I know, I love this question, right? Like you had none, like everything's always good. They only see the good.
Oh, it was perfect. I had no problems. I had every problem. Okay, so what problems did I had? Well, outside impacts, right? I had stores and I expanded through malls. Well, I did temporary leases at malls, and on occasion, the malls would just like come to me and say, "Hey, listen, that temporary lease is over. We're not going to renew it. We have a new store coming in." So literally, I put all this time and energy to building out this store, ordering inventory, and then just like that, the mall took that away from me. So those are some things I did. I've failed in many businesses. While I had those retail stores, I would open I opened this store called Foxy Girl. It was a girl clothing line. And I just thought it complemented. We were doing well with our girl line. So we just said, all right, let's do this. Complete failure. I opened another clothing line that we were going to just do in a little kiosk in the middle of the mall during Christmas. Complete failure. So I just kept failing. And I always, when I failed, I would ask why. I had the books, I had the numbers, but I was learning that I needed to stay in my lane. I was really good at running a skateboard, snowboard apparel store. I wasn't cut out to do a girl store. I wasn't cut out to do this little tchotchke t-shirt line. And I started expanding with what I did, which takes focus off the one thing. As Gary Keller in his book, The One Thing, talks about, my focus got spread out over all these different little things. And I didn't focus on the one thing that was truly bringing the income in and the one thing that I truly loved. And that was a difficult period because failure is tough for any business owner. I failed so many stinking times, but every failure just taught me what not to do the next time. So each failure is why I became successful the next time. But ask anyone in a failing state how they feel at that moment. You feel like a failure. You feel like you're worthless. You can't do anything right. But if you just stop feeling sorry for yourself, if you let your ego go and you start focusing on what could I have done to make that a success, or should I have just followed my gut? As a young entrepreneur, you know what I never did? I never followed my gut. I always would just get this idea and I'd go with it. Even if nothing worked and my gut always told me something different, I just went at it. And I did this over and over for a long period of time.
That's the kind of the double-edged sword about entrepreneurs, is the perseverance and the determination sometimes is the blind spot, right? We kind of miss those things. So let me ask you one other question on your success journey. If you were sitting in front of you 15 years earlier, 20 years earlier, so somebody who's 15, 20 years younger than you right now, what would you advise them if they were starting their entrepreneurial journey? Like, what would be the 2 or 3 things you'd advise them to do?
The biggest thing I would advise, and there's a couple ways to say this, but I would advise that you are going in business to do one thing and one thing only. That is, solve someone else's problem. If you go into business to solve your problem, you go into business because you think you're going to become a millionaire or make a bunch of money, maybe so. But if you go in with that attitude, you've already failed. Every successful business solves a problem for somebody else. If your business is there to solve your problem, you've already failed. So going back in time, if I could talk to myself 20 or 15 years earlier, I would have told myself that your number one focus needs to be everyone else. Give, and solve people's problems. But back then, it was always like, what do I have to do to make more money to do this, right? That was always my goal. Me, not we, not them. And that was a big mistake. And that led to failing so many times because everything I did was all about me when it should have been about somebody else. Zig Ziglar says it best. If you help other people if you help enough people get what they want, you get what you want. Well, I was so focused on getting what I wanted that I forgot to give. And that was a big thing. And I would tell myself, I'd slap myself in the face first and say, stop being selfish. Stop thinking you need money to give and go out there and give more.
So I want to just, before we transition, because I want to talk about how you're solving other people's problems or helping them solve their problems. What was the trigger for you to flip that switch?
Which switch are we talking about?
The switch of moving from me to them.
Oh, failing. Easy. 2014 was like clockwork. I know it was the lowest point in my life. I had in 2008 almost lost it all, but then in 9 to 14, I bought real estate, pennies on the dollar, buy low, sell high, and don't lose money. Warren Buffett's strategy. I read all of his books, and I got up to 36 units. And in 2014, my 37th unit, I went about it all wrong. I didn't have the knowledge, and I was highly leveraged. My 37th unit got denied by the bank, which trickle affected into them freezing my lines of credit, which trickle affected in me getting behind in mortgages, having to sell all those properties. It trickled down to me having to sell the dream house that me and my fiance had bought. I was at the lowest point in my life. So when you're at the lowest point in your life, your ego goes out the door and you really start to question everything that you've done, everything you've done right, things you've done wrong. And you start the process of starting to open up and say, I need help. We always are like, oh, I don't need help. I got this. I can do this. You know, especially entrepreneurs. Like we're the most stubborn sons of pups out there, most egotistical, stubborn people out there. And it sometimes takes us getting hit by a Mack truck or slapped in the face and being at the bottom to actually be willing to learn something new. Right. And that was the point where it all changed, because I went to a mastermind. Greg Reed's mastermind. I had to spend $5,000 that I didn't have on a credit card. I almost didn't go because I was making excuses as to why I shouldn't go to this event. I'm not worthy. I shouldn't be around high level people like this. I can't afford it. And I remember I went there. I felt so out of place. I'm surrounded by huge names. And I remember going to Greg and I said, I need the best advice you can give me. Puts his hand on my shoulder, leans into me, and he says, Chris, I'm going to give you the best advice I can give anyone. I said, yeah, Greg, give it to me, man. And he leans in and he says, give your best stuff away for free. And I'll remember he says this. Yeah. And I thought to myself, you son of a, you know what? That's the best advice you have me. I just spent $5,000 to come out to your house here in California. I can't afford to be here. And that's what you tell me to do. Give everything away for free. That's your answer. Yeah. Best advice I ever got.
Yeah. I love it. Well, let's transition. So you're doing some incredible stuff right now. In the research that I did, and I was watching videos, and of course you were referred to us by somebody I just love, Steve Sims. Tell me what you're doing right now and how you're helping people and what problem are you solving for them? I mean, it's probably more than one, but pick the one that you think is the biggest one people have right now.
It's simple. I can tell you exactly what I do for every single person throughout this country. I solve their money problem by helping them get back control of their money. We've been taught our whole lives to make money, trade hours for dollars, to go out and make the almighty dollar. And then what do we do when we make it? We give it away. We give it to somebody else. We put it in somebody else's control, i.e. banks, Wall Street. I was an advisor. I took control of people's money. And that's the mistake, because how I learned this whole thing is not by being an advisor. I actually, as an advisor, I learned the basic things. It helped me understand people's mentality. But what I also learned is everything that the wealthy don't do. The wealthy don't do what I learned in Wall Street and as an advisor. They do the opposite. They are in control of their money. They understand that if they work hard for money, there's a cap to what they can make. They can only make so much by working harder and hustling, like we're all taught. But what they said is, if I want to really see true wealth, if I want to follow the greats of the most wealthy families, I got to start learning how to take the money that I've made and make that money work for me. Now, that sounds like a simple thing, but is it? Does everybody listening to this know how to make their money work for them? You know how to work for money and you know how to make money, but you know how to make your money go out and work for you? You do not, because you've only been taught to make it and give up control to somebody else. And that is where the problem is. So very simple to solve people's money problem. And their money problem, everybody has a money problem. If it's credit card debt, if it's knowing how to get all the money back for all the cars you're ever going to buy, drive, and own, or maybe you're uber wealthy, you're a multimillionaire or billionaire, you still got a money problem. You want to pay less in taxes. You want to make your money work harder for you. You want to make more money. Everybody's got a money problem. I solve that money problem by telling people how to change just one thing in their life, and it changes everything.
And what is that one thing?
Where their money goes first. So it goes back to being in control. How do you get control of your money? How do you do what the wealthiest families in history have done? The Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, the Stanleys, the Walt Disneys, the Ray Krocs, the Bidens, the McCains. I mean, I could go on for days, but let's just leave it at those. What do they do different than what you do with your money? I'll tell you what they do. They're in control of it, and they also understand how to make it work, but they also don't put their money where you do. You make money and you put it in the bank. And who wins in that equation? because I don't know if any of you have looked at your bank statement lately, but they're not paying you any interest, maybe 1% or less. Yeah, you're laughing. It's not really a laughing thing, because you know what? The bank is making 400 to 1,300% more than you are in the money you left there. Look,
Chris, I was laughing because you met my daughter through our exchange. She comes to me, I don't know how long ago. She says, Dad, like, what's going on in this savings account? I'm not making any money. I go, welcome to the real world.
Oh my goodness. So if we take one from, let's just pick on the Rockefellers, many, many years ago, let's call it 100 years ago, they learned how to actually change where their money went first. They didn't trust banks. So they had to say, all right, we have lots of money. Where do we park our capital where our money's going to be safe and where it's going to earn interest and we still are in control of it? And where they landed is what most people don't understand is giant insurance companies. Giant insurance companies have stood the test of time and have been bigger and stronger and safer than any bank or any Wall Street firm ever has been. So they said, all right, well, I want my money in the insurance company. So they walked in with their big piles of cash and they said, Mr. Insurance Company, can I deposit my money here and leave it here? And the insurance company said, nope. And they said, but we want to put our money there. They said, nope, you can't do it. So they had to figure out how to engineer a banking system using insurance companies. And how they did it is through a vehicle, a machine that's been around for a very long time. And this is where most people are going to tune out, because I'm going to tell you something. What I'm going to tell you next, where the wealthy put their money, is not what you think. And as soon as I say it, you're going to want to tune out. You're going to be like, oh, I got to go to the bathroom. Just don't do it, because you think you know what you don't know. And I promise you, you don't know how this works. Where do the wealthy put their money? All those names I said, all those families who clearly they all know a thing or two more than we do or than you do. Their money starts in a specially designed and engineered whole life insurance policy. Now, before you think you know what a whole life is, these are not like the whole life you buy from your brother-in-law or from the insurance store. These are designed differently. It'd be like me saying, you know, I love it when people say, oh, whole life's the worst place you can put your money. I said, you might be right, but whole life isn't all the same. And a matter of fact, the whole lives we do are designed to do one thing and one thing only: operate as a banking system. And we use the banking system, or the machine, which is this specially designed whole life, to do nothing other than take our money, deposit it in there, and then take it back out. Well, why would you do that? Well, because have you ever seen what a bank does with money? Banks don't take your money that you deposit there and put it in the vault. If you don't know, and I'm going to wake you up a little, there's no money in the vaults anymore. None. They take your money.
We don't have any money anywhere. Just so we're clear, Chris, there's no money anywhere. I don't know where we're getting it from, but
I hear you. It's all fiat money. So if we're just going to play the fiat game, well, we got to understand what the bank does. They take your money and they move it around. They lend it to your neighbor. They lend it to your coworker. They lend it to the finance company. They're moving your money, and every time they move it, they're making money. The wealthy saw this and they said, well, we just got to move our money. But if we put it in the bank wins. If we make our own banking system, we can win. So why a whole life policy? Why these specially designed whole lives? Here's why. If you understand insurance, you will understand that insurance companies provide guarantees. So as of 2021, and I want to be clear about the time because this is changing next year, the insurance companies we use pay a guaranteed contractual 4% interest on the money that we put there through these whole life policies. So unless you're getting 4% at your bank, guaranteed, I'm one better than you are already. Plus the insurance companies, they're mutually owned and they pay dividends. So I get a dividend on top of that. And one of the companies we use pays a 2% dividend. So now I'm at 6%. So now just by changing one thing, and that is where my money went first, I'm making 6% on that money. But that's not the important thing. Now let's just say I have an opportunity. I have an opportunity to buy a piece of real estate, pennies on the dollar. But I'm like, crap, I just put my money in this whole life. I can't take that money out. Nonsense. I go back to that whole life policy in the first 30 days and I take money out. Might not be 100% in the first few years, but I take anywhere from between 60 and 90% out. Now I'm holding the money. But here's the part where you need to understand and listen very carefully. Albert Einstein called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. He said it was the most powerful thing in the universe. Those that understand it earn it. Those that don't pay it. The insurance company will continue to pay me interest and dividends on every penny I put into my account, even though I'm holding some or all of my money in my hand right now. How can that be? How can the insurance company pay you interest when they gave you your money back? I'll tell you how. It's not your money you're holding. It's the insurance company's money. They loan it to you at a lower interest rate than what you're actually earning in your account. So you're making an arbitrage. But now that loan, because I said a swear word, I said loan, everybody's thinking, oh, why would I take a loan from the insurance company? I don't want to owe them money. The insurance company doesn't ever ask you for the loan back. They don't care if you ever paid this loan back to them. Do you know why? Probably not, because you think you know what you don't know. The insurance company advanced you part of your death benefit. If you're building a banking system, what we do is privatize banking. You don't care about the death benefit as much as you care about the money you have to use today. So all I'm doing is I'm taking my death benefit early while I'm living, and I'm using that money. And I am, in doing that, and every wealthy family I mentioned is doing this, I am earning uninterrupted compound interest on every penny that I put through that system while I still have access and control to that money. So now the secret is, if I know how to make money one way, guaranteed, and that's never going to change as long as I live. I don't have to work any harder. I don't have to work any longer. And I don't have to take on any risk to make money there. But now I'm holding it. What do I do with this? I'm going to redeploy it. And I always start teaching people the fastest way to wealth is to look at where your money goes today. Build wealth through your own debts and expenses. You probably have credit cards. You probably have debts. You definitely probably have a car loan. So why don't we just change the dynamic of who gets the checks every single month? Simple. Start by changing where your money goes first. Take that money out. Now I'm holding it. Redeploy it. Let's say I pay Visa off. How much does Visa charge you on your credit card? 20%, 29, 10. Right. It's a high interest rate. If I pay Visa off, most people stop right there. Like, all right, I'm out of debt. Not me, not the wealthy. They pay Visa off and they say, well, we used to give Visa $100 a month. I'm going to change the name on that $100 a month check, and I'm going to change the name to be my bank. I'm going to pay that $100 back to my bank every month because I was okay giving it away. Right. And I'm going to treat my money the same as I treat the bank's money. I'm just going to pay it back to my bank. So now what did you just do in that simple equation? It draw a circle. Your money started on the left. It moved over to the right, which was Visa. Paid Visa off. You took the money you used to pay Visa. You move it down the bottom part of the circle back to your bank. So now what did you do? You made money twice without doing anything different than what you do today. You made money, an uninterrupted compound interest, which is the spread between what you make and what you're owing the insurance company in interest. And then whatever you were paying Visa, 20% in that example, you recaptured that 20% you used to give away. Start there and go down the line. Start paying off all the credit cards, then pay off all the loans, then pay off your car. One thing we teach in the book that I'll give away to your audience is we teach people how to get all the money back for every single car they ever buy, drive, and own. And all they need to do is change one thing. It's that simple. There's no math or no science behind this. It's simple. Treat your money the same as you treat the bank's money, and magic happens. This is what the wealthy understand. And there's never a period of time where my money, the money I work to make, isn't moving around that circle. It's always going around, always around the circle. And when I started learning this, because I wasn't taught this as an advisor, absolutely not. I learned this from the wealthy individuals I met by going to masterminds and being around Greg and Mike and all these really, successful real estate investors. Second, I learned this. Everything changed. Took time. Building wealth is a marathon. It's not a sprint. But as soon as I saw the secret, I felt like I cracked the code. I'm like, oh my God, this is what they know. I got it now. I just started using it. I wasn't teaching it back then. I was greedy. I was just taking it and using it. I was buying real estate. I was flipping houses. I was buying rentals. I was loaning money out in private loans. I was doing all the things that the wealthy do. In the same time, I was never, ever not in control of every single dollar I put through my banking system. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. Wow. So I got to ask a question, and then we're going to shift a little bit. So let's say I'm listening to this, or I'm going to listen to it later on. And in my mind, I have a limiting belief, right? And somebody says, well, Chris, that all sounds great because you got a lot of money, and yet I'm just starting, because somebody's going to say that, right? They're going to go, I'm just starting, right? I got, $100. Tell somebody, where do they start? Besides going to your website to get all this information, which we're going to talk about.
Right. It's very simple. A lot of people think, oh, this is just for the wealthy. Only the wealthy can do this because the wealthy have the money so they can invest the money. Nonsense. Right. I didn't have any money when I started this. My first banking policy I started was $214 a month. So don't tell me you can't save $214 a month, because I had nothing and I did it. I was at the lowest point in my life. $214 might have been $200,000 back then to me. Here's the simple rule. If you like what I'm talking about, and you have to get your mind over the fact that this is actually real and not too good to be true, which you can do your own due diligence on that. But here's the thing. Take your age. I'm 44 years old. Multiply it times 10. That means $440. $440 a month is my minimum to start one of these policies. If I want to start a policy that will work the way I described, 10 times your age monthly is the minimum.
Cool. Well, I mean, oh my gosh, there's so many things. And I know because, when I was doing my research, I was like, I didn't know that. And I'm like, wow. So you have given a lot today, and I know that you're going to share more with us, and there's more that we get at your website. So before we end, I always ask my guests a question. I say, Chris, what's the best advice you've ever been given that hopefully you follow?
Yeah, so it was a long time ago. I mean, give your best stuff away for free was one, but somebody a long time ago when I was complaining I didn't have money, I'm in a bad place, they said, Chris, it's never about your actual resources. It's about how resourceful you can be. If you don't have the money, find somebody that does and solve a problem for them. This is in my real estate career. So I just went out and I found out, what does somebody that has money, what problem do they have? Maybe they don't have time to get the deal. That's what I did. I started solving other people's problems that then solved my problem. But I didn't lead with my problem. I always was in the wallows of my problem, my problem, my problem. I took that and threw that away. I read a Dr. Phil book, to be truthful. And then I started solving other people's problems. And that's when things started going in the right direction for probably the first time in my life, 2014.
Well, here's what I'm having an aha moment, Chris. You have an unlimited market because there is unlimited people who have money problems. I mean, oh my gosh, just wow.
I'm blessed.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's flip it upside down. What's the worst advice you've ever been given that hopefully you didn't follow? And if you did, what did you learn?
I've been given a lot of bad advice. And I would say the worst advice I was ever given, unfortunately, was from my father, who I love very much. And my father, the advice he gave me was, go get a job. Just throw away your dreams and just do this because that's what you have to do as a man. Stop living these dreams and just do what is necessary to provide for your family. And you know what? I think that was the worst advice any human being could ever have given me, because you know what that is? That is my father trying to get me to conform to his ideologies, to the life he lived, because that's what he knows. People are creators by nature. When you're a child, you are a creator.
Yeah.
Until life kicks you down and makes you conform or tells you should conform to somebody else's ideologies because they didn't chase their dreams. Yeah. And I've been told that many times, but I just led with my father. No disrespect to Dad. Love him very much. But that was the worst advice anyone could have ever given me.
Yeah, I kind of apply that to Chris when we had kids. Everybody gave us advice, and yet it was the advice that they had that they really didn't validate. They really didn't flip it upside down. And we chose to take a different path. And I'm proud of our kids and proud of what we've done with them. So absolutely.
Well said, Pat. Well said. Yeah. And you could apply that to any aspect of your life.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, I'm going to do a little cleanup, and you're going to give us a final thought here as we sign off. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, we so appreciate you supporting us and sharing the message and just really tuning in. And so we just really appreciate it. We always want to thank you for that. So, Chris, what would be your final thought that you'd share with us? Oh, before we sign off, and then I'm going to run the website here as a banner as well. So what would you share?
All right. So it's a quote by Will Rogers, and I think it's one of the most profound and necessary quotes for today's times. Will Rogers said, the biggest problem in America is not what people don't know. The biggest problem in America is what people think they know that just ain't so. If you go through your life listening to other people telling you what they think they know that just ain't so, you will never get ahead. You will never go any further. You got to break free and realize that the problem isn't what you don't know. That's not the problem. You need to go out there and seek answers and always follow your gut and then your heart into what it is you want and do something you love. Don't do something other people love or tell you need to do. Do something that you would do for free, and you'll find true happiness, because money isn't happiness. Money's just a tool. Find what you're truly fired up about and go after it with everything you got. And then find a way to make money with it, because if you lead with money, that's a mistake. Lead with what you love, and then the money will follow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well put. So, Chris, I've got the website scrolling down there. What are they going to get when they go to your website at the resources tab?
Well, I mean, like I said earlier, I give all my best stuff away for free. So I don't know. Do you want Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, the book all about that? Do you want to learn how to raise private money with my private money guide? I just did a brand new book called, well, I'm not going to give you the name, but it teaches you how to get all the money back for all the cars you ever buy, drive, and own. But the most important thing I would tell them they're going to get and that they should seek out. On my website, there's a video, a 90-minute video, the same 90-minute video I watched in 2014 when I was asking that question of how is it that I keep failing. Watch that 90-minute video, and I promise you, it will give you the secret, the code, what it is the wealthy do. And then from there, you can basically figure out how to apply that to your life. So watch the 90-minute video. And then if you want, I'll answer any questions you have after that.
I love it. I love it. Well, Chris, thanks again so much. You've done an amazing job, and I know you've challenged thinking, which is what we need to do more of in our world today, and certainly challenge thinking around money. I would encourage our folks to go to Chris's website. There's a lot of information there, and I know you're going to get some value. So, Chris, thanks so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure, and it was a lot of fun. Thank you.
And as I end every show, everybody, be healthy, be happy, be safe. Take care until we see you again. Bye.